he's such a great example. We call that being a student of the game. So where are you today? On a scale of 1 to 10, Frank Lou, if he's a 9 or 10, and he's just nailed it, he's got his time management down, and he's still feeding himself with positive ideas. Are you a 9? Are you 2? Are you 4? I think that's something we all should evaluate. I was in sales for 32 years, led some big organizations in sales and marketing. And I have to tell you what I know now about my potential after learning this and what we teach. I was about a 6 or 7. It's really important to evaluate where we are in our business. The other thing we learn about top producers is they learn to take action. When they know that something makes sense, they make quick judgments. That's why they're good business people. They take risks, that they evaluate it quickly. The number one killer to business, who can guess what? If you give me one word, it is the number one killer to success in business. What would the one word be? Procrastination. We all have it. It's our human nature. If you can learn to make those judgments and move beyond that, it's really good. If you don't do anything today, make a note of this. If you'll write this down, take the stairs. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. Brad was read the book, but it was written by one of our coaches, one of our executive level coaches, Gordon Dayton. He's now one of the most sought after speakers in the country. I was just talking last night with the lady that heads up our speaker bureau. He's booked 200 plus days a year. Gets about $30,000 of speakers all over the world. And his message in here is one of the best I've ever seen. I'll take the stairs. And he's known as one of the industry's experts on self-discipline. He's been a local pro radio. Dave Ramsey recommends him. Anybody comes to Dave Ramsey and wants to know about growing their business or sales, he sends them straight to Southwestern and refers to this book, Take the Stairs. So you can go on our website, you can go on Amazon or wherever and get that book. It's part of our coaching program. That's included. But in this book, one of the things he talks about is the law of diminishing intent and how we make a decision. You know, if the first year is coming up, I say my goal is to get involved in missions this year, or my goal is to whatever, make $200,000 this year. And then I put it in the file drawer, and 2 months later, I've forgotten about even what that goal was, right? What part of my daily life. And so that's, which is, we just answered this question. The number one problem in business today is procrastination. And as business leaders, if we can learn how to deal with procrastination, if we can teach our salespeople, and not just salespeople, operations people. I'm going next week with one of our insurance clients and working with them on reorganizing their sales support staff, which they call customer service reps. And we're redefining how that looks like to help their producers. Their producers are in the field. I don't know about you guys, but their producers are in the field. We measure this. I go travel with them in the field. Their producers are in the field 20 to 30% of the time. What are they doing with the other 78%? They're in the office, and they're doing proposals, and they're getting bids together, and they're getting packages together, and they're making phone calls. That's not what a top producer needs to be spending 80% of the time with. We reverse that for people. We do that for buyer's insurance. When you read the letter referencing the package, hey, right, call him and talk to him about it. We reversed that with his company and took it from him. And we're still developing this. From 80% in the office to 80% in the field. When you do that, we get the right sales support in place, the right team in place, and seeing that all of them are motivated and pushing in the same direction. So, I mentioned this before, the number one problem facing salespeople is time management and how I schedule my day, and am I disciplined about it, and can I avoid distractions? Is this what you look like on Friday afternoon? We've been busy, you know, we've got all these distractions, all these people just walking into my office. I mean, we teach you to avoid creative avoidance. And at the end of the day, you've got measures to say, did I work on the 4 key things that I do to move this agency forward and get our goals? The answer is no, you didn't have a good day. I don't care how busy you are. And we try to help you develop the habits and the metrics to measure that so that you're focused on that. Has anybody read the book by Andy Stanley called Next Generation Leader? If you write that one down, that's another book I recommend. And we won't have it on our website, but all my coaching clients, it's the second book I have to read. Next Generation Leader by Andy Stanley. It's Charles Sanders' son. You may know he said at the church, but he learned the hard way about what I should be doing as a leader and what I should delegate and how to avoid creative reporting. It's a phenomenal book. Every business leader should have that book. It's a short read. Okay, on the cycle of the sale, I'm going to touch on a couple of things here. I told you to talk about referrals. What's the hardest thing about getting referrals for you guys in your business? Asking, I heard somebody asking for it. That's absolutely the number one biggest challenge. And so when you drill deep on that with your salespeople or your customer service people, you'll find that there's some fear around asking for referrals. I mean, one thing we do at Southwestern is we don't beat around the bush, we don't try to sugarcoat it. We try to go right to what the problem is. We try to coach you through it. We give you right training and then hold you accountable and work with you to develop the habit. And there's a fear around not asking for referrals. It's like, well, they might not like it, or maybe they'll say no. It's all this fear. And so when you can overcome that, and you become confident with asking for referrals, it's amazing what can happen to your business. How do you get referrals in a non-threatening way? Most people say, I'm sorry, I know I'm probably standing here where you guys can't see, I should be standing over here. One of the things we find is the most common fear is that, I deal with bankers, and I deal with attorneys, and I deal with successful people. So I just don't know about this asking for referrals. I'm about to show you the most non-threatening way to ask for referrals and get them from busy people, presidents, CEOs, people you want to do business with. It's called LinkedIn. And I'm so glad to hear there's already some training available. That's phenomenal. 90% of the customers we work with do not know how to use it. How many in the room have LinkedIn right now and you've got at least 100 contacts? If I see a show of hands, it's usually about a third of the room. You guys are ahead of the curve. And if you don't have LinkedIn, I don't care. Again, I'm from the baby boomer generation. That's another thing we teach about different generations. For the first time in history, we have 4 generations of people in the workplace. People are working longer. People are moving up faster. First time ever. One thing we teach is how you connect with and how you present to and how you follow up with 4 different generations because they're all different. If I'm calling on somebody in my generation, 58 years old, and then I want to thank them for the visit, then don't send an email. Don't send a tweet. You send me a handwritten note and a hardback book on taking stairs. This is what I send to clients, thanking them for the meeting. I'm all over that. If I'm the next generation down, and I'm in my 30s to 40s, then I send an email. That's how they like to communicate. If I'm in under 30 generation, then I send them a Facebook message or a message on LinkedIn and a link to a book. So, and that's just one example of how you communicate with people, how you follow up people. If you can touch their generation and their buying style, it's very important. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. We have a whole training module on LinkedIn. You guys already have that available, which is great. I just want to, first of all, if you don't have LinkedIn, just go to that website, linkedin.com. It's free. Put your profile on there. It's great free advertising for your agency. And we help people write that. It's free advertising for your agency. When you meet with clients and prospects, one of the first things most of them do is check your LinkedIn page. And if your company doesn't talk about, we've been in business for 30 years, and we do this and we do that, you've just missed a big marketing opportunity. The advanced search is one of the most important pieces that most people don't use. Just go up in the right-hand corner under advanced, click on that, and then you can go in these places that I circled with a keyword. You can put president, put owners. You can put here, I've got insurance, but you can put a keyword you want to search for. Then you can put under location, you put your zip code, and then you decide if you travel a 100-mile radius, what you do, or if it's a 50-mile radius, you plug in the mile radius, and then you hit, and then your industry. If you want to do the insurance industry, you may want to market to education or professors or bankers or whatever it is. When you put your industry, you hit the search button and it'll pull up everybody that's in LinkedIn in that area. It shows a picture, it shows a profile. You can learn your navigate style by reading their profile. And for free, you can save up to 5 saved searches. So you save that search, you label it how you want. Next week, when a new attorney comes to town, because you want to market to attorneys, you've already got 80 on your list. When a new one comes to town, gets on LinkedIn, you'll get an email from LinkedIn, and it's added to your saved search automatically. So I encourage all of you to use that. I want to share with you a little bit about Navigate to give you an idea of what this is. So you may want to write this on your card. There's 3 things I'm going to share with you that I'd like for you to take home. And remember, this will make you money. The first one is Fighter. So just write down Fighter. The second one is Entertainer. The third one is Detective. And the fourth one's Counselor. And again, I just share my personal experience. I sold for 32 years, led some big sales organizations. This has blown me away as I've used this in my business. It absolutely works. Some of you have seen the Myers-Briggs. There's the buying styles and studies. Most everybody's been exposed to that. This is taking that on steroids. We have taken those concepts and studied it down to how you use it itself. So I'm not going to have time to go through all these. I just want to touch on a couple of things. For a fighter, they're very results oriented, but they tend to be dedication. The key thing I want you to write outside fighter is control. Write down control. As soon as you identify a fighter, if you will remember, they have got to be in control. And I'm talking about in control of everything. From what day do we want to meet? Where do we want to meet? Where would you like to sit? How would you like this presentation to go? How much time do you have? And then if you remember control, because their biggest fear is losing control. And the other thing I want you to just write down is closing technique is choice of 2. Just write choice or choice of 2. Always give the fighter 2 choices. I don't care, you know that they want, this umbrella policy for their business and you got it all worked out. Fine, go out of your way to take them another choice. Choice A, choice B. When you do that, a fighter will then say, well, no, I don't want this one, I want this one. They feel in control. If you don't do that, a fighter's natural tendency, the way they think, is to, well, John, call me next week. Oh, I need to think this over, and then we'll decide what we'll do. They will put you off. They will procrastinate closing the deal. So choice of 2 is really important. Next one right now is entertainer. Entertainers are very extroverted. The weakness is we talk too much. I'm an entertainer, and I had to learn is when they get to the peak of the buying line, I got to stop talking. A lot of entertainers just talk to customers right out of giving you the order. It's very important, very enthusiastic. Entertainers have never met a stranger. They're inspired by affirmations. If you're an entertainer, compliment us on our tie, tell us how our purse looks or our shoes. I mean, they want affirmation. They want to be loved by everybody. It's very important. So if you use that with an entertainer when you first meet, they're the ones you're going to meet with. They want to talk about Georgia football for 20 minutes, and we've got a 30-minute meeting. The fighter, conversely, you want to talk about Georgia football, they want to get right down to business. What do you got? Let's go. They want to get right to the bottom line. So your salespeople learn to navigate through this with the prospect. And then I want you to, so the first thing to write beside entertainer that I want you to remember is F-U-N, fun. As soon as you meet an entertainer, just think fun. All right, I've got to make this fun. I've got to make the meeting fun. If this was a bunch of entertainers, I should have music playing when you walked into the room. You're going to make it fun. And the entertainer puts this presentation together. It's got pictures, it's got bullet points, it's fun, right? If I was presenting to a bunch of detectives that's all about the detail, I'd have charts and graphs and all this detail. Entertainers hate detail. They're not going to read your contract. They're going to sign it and move on. The detective is going to read every word of it. So it's important to know that. Out beside fun, I want you to write crystal ball. The best closing technique for an entertainer is you paint the picture. You have them look into the crystal ball. You have them seeing themselves, how they're going to be protecting their family, their business. And if this house burns down, you're going to picture how you're going to take care of the family. And your wife has got my cell phone 24/7. Paint the picture for them so they can see how this is going to benefit them. It's very important for an entertainer. For entertainers, I got to plug this in too. It's all about names. You want to get in with an entertainer that's president of a bank. Use names. Go to LinkedIn, pull up their name, see how many people they're connected with, and you find somebody you know that they know and use those names. It's like magic with an entertainer. It's very important. Counselor, I want you to write out beside counselor, team, T-E-A-M. Counselors are all about the team. And we learn to use these key words when we're talking to them and when we're doing our presentation. One of the weaknesses is counselors are the slowest decision makers on earth. I mean, it is painful for them to make a decision. It's painful for them to make a change. And so we've got closing techniques and presentations built around connecting with and closing a counselor. If you remember team, use that word when you're meeting with a counselor. What would be a good time to meet with your team? Tell me about your team. What kind of insurance coverage does your team have now? You learn to use these key words with these buying styles, and you'll be amazed what happens. Their biggest fear is change. As I said, this one is great. And you'll be like me. When I first saw it and learned it, I thought, well, I don't know. I'm not sure about it. This is like magic when you're with entertainers. An insurance agent, the agency I was working with just recently, they knew they needed it, we wanted it, we had our presentation, we were doing a consulting thing with them, we're rebranding the company, redoing the website, and at the end of it, I mean, I had 20 buying signs. Yes, 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 let's go. When can we start? But to close the deal and get a sign on the bottom line, here's what I did. I said, John, I'm sure you and your team would like to spend a little time talking about a lot of things here. I'm going to step out and make a few phone calls. I'll be back in about 10 minutes. Is that okay? And if you've got any questions, we'll answer them then. But what I just did, I walked out of the room, I closed the door, I gave them time to talk about it. The CFO, who was the girl bean counter, and he wasn't sure about the money, and we had the other director of sales, came back in the room, 10 minutes, we're good, let's go. When can we start? I promise you, if I would not have used the walkout clause, knowing that the two key decision makers were counseling, they would have said, you know, Steve, call us next week. We need some time to think about this and review it with the team, but we really like it, but let's talk next week. No question, that's what I would have gotten. But there's a closing technique designed to let that counselor do what counselors do and process the information with the team, make sure everybody's on board. Now they're ready to close. If you're working with a husband and wife and you're selling them an insurance policy, and one of them's a counselor, good luck closing them. What are they going to say? Well, call us Friday next week, or call us tomorrow. We need some time to sleep on this. And we're going to think about it. We're going to pray about it. We're going to whatever. They're going to take some time before they give you a decision. But if you'll walk out and say, I'm going to step outside and need to make a few phone calls, because you probably want some time. That is a very important closing technique designed for counseling. Detective, I want you to just write detail. Remember detail. As soon as you meet a detective, these are usually CPAs, CFOs, engineers, doctors, are usually going to fall in the detective category. Remember details. They're all about the details. When you meet with them and present to them, take them to market studies, take them all your analysis. That's really, they've got to make sure they've got all the details. Their biggest fear is making a mistake. And the closing technique is called tie down. So write down tie down. And the way that works is you make a short statement about the facts, and you get them to say yes. So John, remember we looked at these charts and how this insurance policy over time will protect your family and save money. Remember that? Say yes. And then do that 3 times. With the detective, they're ready to close. If you don't, they're going to say, call me, John, next week, and I need some time to review the details, and then we'll get back to it. So these are closing techniques designed to connect with the buying style.